Boring. 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 You know, I've seen some people suggest that episode 5 of The Acolyte is actually the best of the series, and it's probably because you can't actually see anything as it's so dark. In episode 5, all of the Jedi that they showed us throughout the series, they're all dead now, and they were killed by Darth Dentistry in some random forest on some random planet, and Darth Dentistry reveals himself to be this guy.
I don't care!
May then finds her twin sister Osha unconscious and uses this opportunity to strip her naked and steal her clothes. So now May, disguised as Osha, meets up with Sol, who's the only Jedi that has survived, and because Sol is like the audience, he also doesn't have a clue which twin Amanda Stenberg is actually portraying, and mistakes May for Osha, and they both travel back to Coruscant, respectfully leaving behind each and every single body of the dead Jedi that Sol brought with him on this mission.
Are you serious?
Now, from a story perspective, this week's episode of The Acolyte doesn't leave us with much to talk about, but it does give us the opportunity to talk about lightsaber fights, because episode 5 was overloaded with them. Daphne Keane said that the showrunners wanted a lightsaber fight that would rival Darth Maul versus Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, Duel of the Fates from The Phantom Menace.
How ironic.
After Leslie Headland was mocking the prequels in an interview, she wanted to create a lightsaber fight in her own show that would be as good as something from the prequels.
This is like what we understand to be Star Wars, like the idea that like that only came from George Lucas, that only George Lucas holds the key for what we understand to be Star Wars is just untrue. And I think the prequels are an excellent example of that. I mean,
shut up, bitch!
So, were there lightsaber fights in episode 5 of The Acolyte that could rival Duel of the Fates? No, of course there wasn't. So what were the fights in this episode missing? What makes a good lightsaber fight? The three main ingredients for a great lightsaber fight is the choreography, the music and score, and the emotional stakes involved in the fight. Why we should care about what's happening, the reason we should give a damn about who dies, who survives, or who gets injured. These fights in this episode of The Acolyte didn't have any of these three ingredients. From a filming perspective, filming a fight sequence at night or in dark settings means you can more effectively mask or hide poorly executed choreography. The audience is less likely to notice mistakes, awkward movements, or the lack of coordination among the fighters. Also, filming in dark settings offers more flexibility when it comes to editing the fight sequence in post-production. Quick cuts and close-ups combined with the obscurity of filming in the dark can make it easier to put together a convincing fight sequence. Which is why I'm convinced they filmed this fight sequence between Darth Dentistry and multiple Jedi in the dark and behind loads of trees, because you can't make a fight between multiple people against one person look convincing, you just can't do it. That's why in Revenge of the Sith, when 4 Jedi Masters confronted Palpatine in his office, the decision was taken to instantly kill 3 of them. 4 versus 1 would have looked ridiculous. But even if you can actually see enough of the choreography to be entertained and convinced by it, the fight sequences in The Acolyte have much bigger problems than that. Nobody cares what happens when Jedi were getting wasted left, right and centre every time a Jedi was killed. Instead of feeling any kind of sadness, I was sat there reacting like that guy from The Simpsons. Also, this guy isn't intimidating anyone. All this guy is doing is reminding you to book your next dentist appointment. Darth Maul, on the other hand, is terrifying. I've had this painting of Darth Maul for 10 years. I've never been able to put it up because everyone I've lived with is terrified of it. It's currently sitting in my cupboard under a bin bag. Anyway, speaking of Darth Maul, let's see what a great lightsaber fight actually looks like.
This is where the fun begins.
Let's look at the fight between Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon and Darth Maul in The Phantom Menace, Duel of the Fates. Again, we'll begin with the choreography. First things first, they're not hiding this fight. They've used clever choreography to construct a convincing and epic fight sequence, unlike The Acolyte, where they have hidden the lightsaber fight between a load of trees and in the dark.
Cowards!
As I've mentioned before in this video, you can't make multiple targets versus one look convincing, and it's a struggle to pull this off even with a 2 versus 1, but the choreographer Nick Gillard manages to do this by having Darth Maul separating Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan multiple times during this fight, so Darth Maul is only engaging one of them at a time. There are a couple of situations where Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon attack Darth Maul at the same time, but it only lasts a couple of seconds or a couple of lightsaber strikes before Darth Maul even knocks Qui-Gon or Obi-Wan back, creating a 1v1 again. In fact, I count this happening 5 times. But this duel is more than just a lightsaber fight. There's more to this fight than just great choreography. There's a reason to give a damn about this fight. Depending on how this fight turns out, the entire Star Wars saga will be vastly different, because Qui-Gon is the Jedi, the father figure, the mentor that Anakin needs. Now, I haven't forgotten the third main ingredient to make a great lightsaber fight, which is the music and score behind it. I just didn't mention it when talking about the lightsaber battles in the Acolyte because there's nothing to say. There's just nothing, just like the whole series. If you've been following this channel, you know that I've made this point many times. The music and score throughout the whole series is just non-existent. On this channel, I always try to explain why I think something is good. If I say something is bad, or I think something is good, I always try to explain why, instead of saying it sucks and never explaining why. But I'm not going to stand here and try and explain to you how John Williams' music makes you feel. I'm just going to ask you this question. Would you feel the grand sense of climax, the grand sense of it all comes down to this, when Yoda and Palpatine are rising up in the Senate building? Would you feel Luke's emotion as he's swinging at Vader after he screamed never? And what would the Darth Maul versus Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan fight be without John Williams' music, Duel of the Fates? Would this fight be as iconic and great? In my opinion, no. But luckily, we live in a world where we don't have to worry about that. Thank you so much for watching this video. YouTube is just a hobby for me at the moment. I love making these videos, but as I'm working, it takes a while for me to make these videos. So if you enjoy this stuff, please consider taking a moment to subscribe to me. It would really help me out more than you can possibly imagine. And my channel still isn't running adverts at the moment, so you get great content with no adverts. Sounds like a win-win to me.